The names of the 11 Toronto MPs alleged to have been working with China. That's Mary Ng, according to Sam Cooper. And I'll show you that. And hospital workers in Abbotsford are blowing the whistle on how dangerous and subpar the care is. And people should know, they say, and there are BC Conservatives who are following it up with their own video as well. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, we've got to start with our grab bag of governance and China. China's in the early part of the show today as well. But Son of a Bench is responding to Karina Gould, who's the Liberal leader in the House, her little video talking about how we've got to get on with governing and people don't want an election, et cetera, et cetera. Son of a Bench says, let's get clear about Liberal Karina Gould's video. She's fear-mongering about Conservatives trampling your charter rights. This is exactly what the Liberals have been doing. The Liberals quash investigations to hide the truth. This is dictatorship. And further, here's another person responding to Karina Gould's video. GM says her government was found by a federal court judge to have violated Canadians' charter rights by invoking the Emergencies Act. And so here's the video, and it's Liberals reimagining reality to fit their narrative, and that's what they do. Here we go.
Something else happened this week in Parliament that Canadians across this country should be extremely alarmed about. The Conservatives put forward a motion that would trample the charter-protected rights of Canadians. Look, Parliament has extraordinary powers, and it should have extraordinary powers. But what the Conservatives put forward would direct Parliament to get documents to send directly to the RCMP. Now, both the RCMP and the Auditor General have raised their extreme discomfort with this motion. And the reason is because it looks like Parliament is trying to bypass the normal judicial processes required of police in order to conduct police investigations. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't want to live in a country where Parliament can direct the police on what to investigate. In fact, I don't know of any democracies that can do this. The only countries that I know that do this are dictatorships or police states. And now, when I raised this issue, the Conservatives said, well, it's our right to do it. Well, just because it's your right to do it doesn't mean that you should. The Conservatives like to talk about freedoms, but what they showed this week is the freedoms that they will start to take away from Canadians should they get into power. If this is what they do in opposition, imagine what they would do in government.
Put together fear-mongering videos that lie about their opposition, maybe? I don't know. The Liberals are engaging in that. Why wouldn't the Conservatives? It's very interesting, right? They want you to believe something. And valid concerns? I don't necessarily think so. But the whole idea is basically fear the Conservatives because they're going to take away your charter rights by bringing in a police state. Meanwhile, have you heard of the Coots guys? Have you heard of Tamara Litch? Have you heard of Chris Barber? The Liberals have been behaving in a very, very autocratic, authoritarian way for a while, and it's rich to claim that they're the party of freedom and, you know, Canadian traditional values, et cetera, et cetera. Come on, right? You've got to be kidding me. The Hill Times is reporting Liberal MP Rob Oliphant was chased down the street. Bloc MP Natalie Sinclair D says a protester grabbed a colleague's coat, and NDP MP Laurie Illout was called a Nazi. MPs say they should be able to walk the Hill without being harassed. Well, it turns out when you shut down the economy and print money endlessly, and that results in what's happening in Canada, also the whole full-scale invasion plus the job thing, people are upset about that, and the houses thing, people are upset about that. That's the cost of living crisis, et cetera, et cetera. But people aren't happy about that, and it seems like there's a bunch of traitors who are in the House of Commons, and the people who are supposed to be protecting our government from being infiltrated from those traitors, et cetera, from those influences, aren't doing a damn thing to stop it. And so people are frustrated. And so you don't want to get harassed? Maybe do your job. Maybe do your job, I guess. That would be my advice. Canadian Prime Minister says the right to choose is fundamental. Now, like, when these focuses on women health, abortion, et cetera, the baby never comes into it. And this is not about women's health. It's about being able to continue to have this abortion thing not be looked at twice. And that's really a strange thing. And I don't think that there is such a thing as safe abortion day, but the fact that all of Western society in the upper echelon and in like supervisory roles, management, that kind of stuff, the fact that all of that is in a situation now where they are pushing this and they all believe that this is women's health. I don't know how to unwind that and have a proper conversation that like this has nothing to do with women's health. It has very little at all to do with women's health. And they don't seem to care about any of that. And that's weird, right? Here is in with the backdrop of Coquitlam, tent cities, right? Here's somebody driving through Coquitlam. I'm probably getting this wrong, but that's not what I wanted to do. There we go. Here's the tent cities of Coquitlam. Says the only affordable housing the NDP have delivered after 7 years are tent cities. So there you go. And that's very interesting that what Justin Trudeau and his ilk want to focus on is safe abortion day, right? Not safe tent day. This is a long thread talking about Danielle Smith's appearance in a town hall in Edmonton. It has questions and answers. She's talking about the UCP's priorities and what they've done and the Sovereignty Act and all sorts of stuff. So if you're interested in going deep, like it's a really long thread. I don't think I can read it right now. So apologies, Alberta. It's kind of deep. Like one of the reason that it caught my attention was the first question. The first attendee asks their question to Smith, focusing on small businesses. They say that although the Alberta economy is booming, small businesses are not. They ask what Smith and the UCP are doing to help small businesses. And she continues, Smith responds saying they're focused on tax deductions to put more money in Albertans' pockets so they can spend it at small businesses. Dale responds after saying he's introducing a program the left is going to hate, which is automatic permit approvals. So they're doing things to fast track permitting and cut red tape, et cetera, et cetera. So just a little bit, if you're interested, link should be in the description. Western Standard says Canada and United States to negotiate the Arctic seabed boundary after 199 years. That sounds great. That sounds like, oh yeah, I mean, what else could you possibly want to do right now at this time? Like it's super urgent. It's been pending for 199 years, don't you know, right? Like yikes. So if it could wait 199 years, you'd think maybe there are more pressing issues. No, we've got this one on the list. It's been on the list for 200 years, man. Mm-hmm. Fundamental Justice is responding to Gloria. Gloria is a lawyer who fled Canada because she is trying to fight and bring lawsuits against Justin Trudeau personally and a few other leaders of the country personally because of what they did during COVID, and she's having a hard time. She says, my hearing is this Monday in Quebec City. The Quebec bar, after having abusively and illegally disbarred me, a case that's currently before the United Nations Human Rights Council, is suing me for illegal practice in relation to the only class action lawsuit against Justin Trudeau personally and other lying elected officials, the only recourse aimed at preserving the rights of Canadians in the face of this crime against humanity, that is the dangerous experimental injection under the repeated lies of safe and effective vaccine. I suggested that the Quebec bar wait for the United Nations Human Rights Council's position on my complaint, and the Quebec bar continues its actions, which are contrary to the protection of the public. I will have a first hearing on this panel prosecution this Monday, September 30th, 2024 at 9:15 a.m. at the Quebec Courthouse, room 235. 2.35. You're all welcome to attend to lend your support. So there you go if you're interested in that. And Fundamental Justice says the law societies are controlling lawyers on the basis of politics. How do we have a fair and impartial trial if dissent is eliminated before the trial? This is a concern for all Canadians. So you see what they're doing? They've driven the woman out of Canada, and they're trying to invalidate her lawsuit before it gets to any kind of situation where they can be held accountable, right? They control the courts, they control the tribunals, all sorts of stuff. And this is incredible, and you'll punch yourself out trying to get these people to do what you want them to do. Like, she's a lawyer who was disbarred So she knows how to navigate the system better than I would. But I think if I paid a lawyer, I'd go bankrupt before I made any headway at all, period, right? And so that's crappy, right? Here's the last little bit of our grab bag of governance. CBC Watcher says Pascal Saint-Onge, to get a break from defending journalistic malpractice. Apparently she's going on a parental leave with her wife, and this guy says the pregnancy was unplanned, the article wrote. Oh, right. But the article actually just says the timing was unplanned. So, but she says that it works out because, like, Pascal Saint-Onge says it works out because she says it's close to when the house rises, that the baby's supposed to be born, I guess. But here they're saying it'll be happening in the next couple of weeks. So anyway, one way or the other, she's leaving for parental leave for her wife. There you go. Canada. Let's talk about China and the problems there. Stephen, says ex-CSIS director David Vinot tells Hogue Inquiry he was very surprised a key report on China's targeting of elected officials was never provided to Justin Trudeau. This was a very illustrative piece of intelligence analysis that should have been read by the Prime Minister. I think I can guess why he didn't read it. And the reason is because it was an illustrative piece of intelligence that should have been read by him. He was like, oh, yeah? Put that on my to-read pile. Put that right at the bottom of the pending pile, please. Optimum Pushing International says, Thursday evening, Sam Cooper, along with Charles Burton, MP Kevin Vung, and former CSIS Canada Michael Junot-Katia addressed numerous MPs and guests on the nature of state capture, and Cooper named Minister Ng as one of the 11 named in the NSICOP report. So that's pretty high up there. She's a minister, right? And if ministers are being appointed who are influenced by foreign Chinese communist nations, that's not great, right? Very, very concerning. And again, the influence, the external influence matters, right? And Greg goes through who our justice minister is in a little while, and that's a very interesting, eye-opening piece that he put together. Anyway, I'll finish this one off. Andrew says a liberal super close to the Chinese Communist Party was installed in a safe liberal seat and became an MP. That's Handong, with several dozen international students from China being bussed in to vote, making the difference. 14 non-Canadian kids installed a CCP-friendly MP. Your party is corrupt and should be eliminated from the public life, Justin Trudeau, Liberal Party. And Andy Lee is saying, since no one at the Liberal Party knows how many votes Han Dong had to win, according to this, he beat Julie Bang Jubang by a mere 14 votes, meaning that if just 15 students voted for him who did not ordinarily live in this riding, he is now sitting as an illegitimately elected MP. And so that's interesting, don't you think, right? The number of votes that he won by is just 14. That's razor thin, right? Incredible. Here's Michael Cooper talking about Arrive scam, etc. And Michael Cooper says Prime Minister Trudeau, Minister Stephen Guilbeault is profiting off of the Green Slush Fund corruption. His former boss was on the board and funneled $40 million to companies her firm invested in. Guilbeault has shares in the firm. No wonder the Liberals are working so hard to cover up this massive scandal. Truth. Here we go.
Whose company has received, or her firm, and the companies connected to her firm have received more than $40 million from the Green Slush Fund. This is someone who sits on the board as tens of millions went out the door. And the Minister of the Environment happens to be a shareholder. He happened to work closely with Ms. Matteau prior to his election. And so we have a minister in this government who is profiting off the conflicts and corruption at the Green Slush Fund. Perhaps that may explain the total lack of interest in getting to the bottom of the corruption.
It might. It just might. Goodness me. But people would get upset if you implied that, right? Or if you pursued that. But maybe the Conservatives will. I don't know. Let's talk about money and misuse of tax dollars. Michael Barrett says Brookfield, the firm where carbon tax Carney is chair, wants $10 billion in taxpayer money from Trudeau for an investment slush fund. Now Carney, freshly appointed as Trudeau's advisor, is fundraising for the Liberals. How much money did he promise to raise for the Liberals? He has access to people who have lots of money, deep pockets, right? Because they're investment bankers, they're neck deep in great jobs for DEI, et cetera, right? And so give 5, give 50, give 100, give another amount, right? Give 25. Mark Carney is pushing it. And I mean, he's going to walk in and just skirt around all the usual checks and balances, or the usual things that a politician would have to do in order to get to a leadership position in a party. And he's just going to walk in and either become finance minister directly or leader of the party. I don't know. Be interesting. Dr. Anastasia says, how is this America first? I think a very similar thing is happening in Canada. And this is asking the Facebook AI, some AI somewhere, how much would it cost to eradicate homelessness in the United States? $53 billion, it says. And I think homelessness is a byproduct of it's a multifaceted disorder that has other things going on. Like, you don't just wake up one day and you're like, oh man, like I don't have a house anymore. There's other things that are happening within the realm of the person, and giving them a home doesn't necessarily, it'll fix one problem, but giving them a home doesn't necessarily fix the whole person. Does that make sense? And sometimes they'll just take what is given to them and figuratively burn it down, right? Ruin it, destroy it, not take care of it to a degree that is akin to ruining it. And so, like, sometimes you're helping, but sometimes people just want to see their own world burn, right? And that's like, there's nothing you can do about that. I don't know if that's built into the budget or if it's just plain straight how much to house everybody in the United States, right? Different, but still. Anyway, I digress. How much would it cost to eradicate hunger in the United States? $25 billion. How much would it cost to make education free? $80 billion. How much money has the U.S. sent to Israel in total? $250 billion. Interesting. So the choice is, you've got to eradicate all of those things in Israel before you can touch them in the United States. Maybe. That's interesting, right? I wondered how much we sent to Ukraine, and we've sent $4.1 million. And we keep announcing it in $500 million increments. And that may seem like not a lot of money, but I wonder what we could do with that money in Canada. It's not eradicate homelessness, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm sure that money could be used in Canada for, I don't know, something. We've got tent cities. We've got all sorts of other stuff. This is from July 24, and I was just using this for the 500 million more and $4 billion price tag so far in Ukraine, in arms, munitions, all that other stuff that we've sent their way. Again, I'm sure that money could have been better spent domestically than making sure this war with Russia continues on. Here is John Kerry. This is supposed to go in speech, but I want to play it here anyway. He's talking about carbon taxes. This is carbon tax. And again, this is misuse of tax dollars. I don't know. I know that carbon taxes are just a punitive tax that drive inflation. Here are these guys talking about.
If taxes. I understand the panel right, the primary solution would be a global carbon tax where you internalize the externalities. If you have a carbon tax, you will then price.
This is John Kerry. Did I say Mark Carney? I think this is John Kerry.
On carbon.
Yeah.
We don't like taxes here.
Oh, no. Okay. Sorry, we're from Europe, you know. So the preferred would be a carbon
Let
price.
The market work on it.
Yeah. A carbon price where you then would incentivize investments in green technology, decarbonization, of course, because many companies would then prefer that than paying the price, so internalizing the externalities. It doesn't seem like it's happening just now. Then the border adjustment tax is then a way where if you produce a lot of CO2, emit a lot of CO2 in your production, you will have a levy and tax on your product when it arrives to that country. And then it creates a better level playing field between those that, for example, run everything on renewables, producing aluminum and steel, and those that then use possibly cheaper energy, but are then costing the planet a lot because it's heating. So if that doesn't work, what is then left there, I think industry policy is mentioned, where you then use kind of subsidies. I know that is not a word that Kerry will like either, but you incentivize by governmental money investments in accelerating decarbonization.
Which is exactly what we're doing in Canada. They use the term price on carbon. They use the same kind of tricks and nudges to trick you into not thinking that you're paying a tax, but you are. That's all it is. And they desperately, desperately don't want you to put two and two together and realize that it's faulty. It's not actually doing anything to fight these climate issues that they're claiming at all, right? CKNW is reporting this. Moving on, we're talking about health now. At least 30 to 40% of patients are housed in beds and corridors and toilets in storerooms. They're not in wards. It's simply unsafe. And Abbotsford doctor is sounding the alarm about conditions at the hospital. And that's wild, right? Why would anybody do that? Why would people put patients in a situation like that? Here are two Conservative candidates for BC talking exactly about this. Here we go.
Hey everybody, Bruce Bam here.
Too fast. Sorry, everyone. Sorry. I try to listen to everything to make sure that it's worthwhile to show you. And sometimes I listen to some of it, but not all of it. Sometimes I see if I could cut it down to just like a minute, but sometimes it makes more sense to just play all of it, right? So anyway, that's the case here. Here we go.
Hey everybody, Bruce Bam here. I'm the candidate for the Conservative Party of British Columbia for the riding of Abbotsford South. And I'm here with Corky Neufeld, who's the candidate for the riding of Abbotsford West. And we're here to talk about David Eby's latest dumpster fire, which is the Abbotsford Hospital and Regional Cancer Center. The Abbotsford Regional Hospital and Cancer Center, rather. Now, you know what? I don't know if you're watching the news, but the doctors and nurses have sounded the alarm that if you're sick, you may not want to come here. You'll get shoved into a hallway. You'll get shoved into a bathroom or a shower and you may not have any privacy. It's an absolute mess. The emergency room wait times are outrageous. It is just horrible. Wait, Corky, you've got some personal experience on this as well.
Yeah, I was a caregiver for my mom for the last 10 years of her life. At 93, she passed away in 2022. My parents paid in taxes for health care, and when they needed it most at their age of 90, 91, 92, 93, the healthcare system failed them. When the doctors and nurses who work very hard here at this hospital are saying to us, hey, I don't feel comfortable bringing my own family here.
Yeah.
I don't feel safe bringing my own family here. Well, that says a lot.
Thank you very much, David Eby. You know what? David Eby has treated Abbotsford as if we are second-class citizens.
Absolutely.
We're getting third-world level care here. You know, can you imagine your loved one being shoved in a hallway?
Unbelievable.
It's outrageous. I saw it firsthand. You know, we've got to do something, and you know what we've got to do? We've got to change government, because clearly the NDP are out and out incompetent, and something needs to be done. And as John Rustad says, vote for the Conservatives, because we're going to get stuff done.
There you go. So BC election heating up, and people are using hot button issues to make their case. There you go. Melanie Joly, let's talk about war. And still, I said to my dad yesterday, have you seen anything about Joe Biden allowing Ukraine to use telemetry to attack deep into Russia? And he said, no, they won't do that. And I said, no, I know that, you know, Putin was like, if you do that, all bets are off, and, you know, nuclear war and the whole deal. And I said, I've seen that, but I haven't seen any kind of response. I haven't seen anything one way or the other saying, you know, we're still going to go ahead with this, or anything happening. And so I looked yesterday again, and it was still kind of the same stuff that I've seen over the last couple of days. Nothing really developing on that story. So I'm keeping an eye out. If you see anything, let me know. But I still don't have an idea one way or the other what NATO's position is on, you know, poking Russia more for that nuclear war. Mel Jolie says the situation in Lebanon continues to worsen. Canadians need to leave now, and we are helping with that. Canada has secured seats for Canadians on limited commercial flights available. If a seat's available, please take it. She says, please ensure you're registered with our embassy in Beirut and indicate you want help leaving. Embassy officials will contact you with details. If you need financial assistance, loans are available. So that's interesting. And one of the things that is interesting to me is, how can we be like, we don't vet anybody that we're bringing out of there. Like, who's to say that we're not bringing out terrorists who are fleeing the consequences, et cetera, et cetera. And again, it feels like, to me, we're sticking our nose where it doesn't belong. Mel Jolie's saying there's a bunch of Canadians there, but I think it's more complicated than that. And like, I'm a child of immigrants to Canada, right? But I think that there's a group of immigrants who come to Canada, have children, and then go back home and then milk Canadian benefits. And I've heard firsthand stories of people doing this, like saying, this is how I grew up. And I was like, wow, that's a seedy underbelly that I had no idea existed. So like, I don't think that we should be opening up the floodgates to people who we really don't know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It seems like we're putting our nose where it doesn't belong, and we're potentially pulling people out who wouldn't be wishing the best for Canada, despite the money, et cetera, right? Jeepers creepers. So I don't know. I'm worried about this. I'm worried about the number of people coming in after seeing the number of people entering the United States, and just driving around Guelph. I've said yesterday's a nightmare. Holy cow, right? Like, the traffic has gotten markedly worse in the last 6 months than even, in memory of the last couple of years. Crazy town. Harrison Faulkner, of course, I talk about traffic during the war series of tabs. Harrison Faulkner says, I don't know if this is true, but I'm pretty sure we're not ready if it is true. And YEG Waves says NATO is urging Canada to prepare for a conventional war. Experts warn Canada could face a direct conflict with Russia or China if NATO is tested, and Canada is being asked to ensure it's ready if war breaks out. So that's no. Nope. That's a big fat no, dog. Have you seen our military at this point in time? We're not ready for war. Give me a break. And so if our government was tasked with actually getting Canada ready for war, what do you think it would do? I feel like draft. Number one, draft, period, right? I've got a religious exemption. Sorry, man. Pastafarian, and we just don't go to war. We're peaceful. Very peaceful. I'm kidding. Still have a religious exemption. Randy Hillier says, the USA embassy in Iraq is under siege while American bases in Syria are under attack tonight. Let's keep inching towards total war. Osin Defender says, U.S. forces located within the Conco gas field in northeastern Syria have reportedly suffered a second attack tonight, with the attack coming after American and coalition air forces launched a series of strikes on Iranian-backed forces along the border between Syria and Iraq. So there's all sorts of conflict breaking out here and there and everywhere. And like, that's not great. That's not a good thing, I don't think. So I don't want, and I don't think anybody else in Canada my age, generally speaking, right? Like, if there's 100 people in a room, I think probably more than 60 of them would agree with the statement of, I don't want to go to war and die on a foreign battlefield for any of the leaders in the West at this point in time. Not for Joe Biden, not for Kamala, not for Trump, not for Justin Trudeau, not for Pierre Poilievre, not for any of them. No thanks. Not for Keir Starmer, not for whoever the Australian guy is, not for Jacinda Ardern. No thank you. Period. Full stop. Your enemies seem to have good reason to hate you. All of them, right? And like, the stuff that you guys have done on using our name and tax dollars, I don't agree with any of it. So I'm not going to go fight a war. I'm not going to go fight your bullshit war. That's not going to happen, period. And so I feel like a lot of people feel like that. So I don't think that's controversial. So I think that there potentially are wars that need to be fought, but those wars are on our streets for our families to make sure that they're safe. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wouldn't say we have to go to Iraq to bring freedom to Iraq. That's not a virtuous war. It may seem like a virtuous war, but invading another country to bring your style of democracy to that country doesn't seem like a good excuse to go to war to me. And I know that's what was sold. Also, oh, they have weapons of mass destruction, et cetera, et cetera. But all of this seems like manipulation and convincing people to go and die for economic causes, but they have to believe in it more than that, right? Like, you're defending freedom, and it's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. Anyway, moving on. Let's talk about race. Harrison says, oh, actually, you know what? I've got another thing here. Hold on. It was already set up properly. Okay, Harrison says, is it not strange, weird, he says, that Canada's Attorney General, Arif Varini, who was born in Uganda, came to Canada as a refugee, is pushing the most draconian speech laws ever seen in Canada? And Canada's Crown Indigenous Relations Minister, Gary A., who was born in Sri Lanka and also came to Canada as a refugee, is now supposedly supporting wildly unconstitutional hate speech laws? Great way of giving back to our country to advocate putting political dissidents in prison. And so here's Greg, and he's got some excellent points. History teaches us many lessons for those who care to look. Here we go.
I was doing some research on Bill C-63 and the Liberal minister who presented it, Arif Varani, and realized that Arif is part of the Ismaili Muslim community. They are a small part of Islam, but as I recalled, they actually have a very beautiful museum here in Toronto, the Aga Khan Museum. It's gorgeous. Based on what I've read, Ismaili Muslims were kicked out of Africa in the 70s, and a number of them were graciously welcomed into Canada after that. Arif Varani's parents, for example, were part of this generation who were very grateful to allow themselves to be established here in Canada. And now I'm wondering, where is Arif Varani's gratitude for being welcomed here to Canada? His Bill C-63, the Online Harms Act, would be the end of free speech in this country. And Talib Nur Muhammad, another Liberal MP and Ismaili Muslim, he was one of the first people to suggest the freezing of bank accounts for peaceful protesters in this country. Are Ismaili Muslims even aware what these two Liberal MPs representing their community are even up to? These two individuals are violating the fundamental human rights that we enjoy here in Canada. I mean, as Ismaili Muslims, where is their gratitude for this country and the freedoms they were afforded after being expelled from Africa? As a Canadian who's watching our liberties slowly get taken away, I'm wondering, where will I escape to? Where will we escape to? But hey, I'm just learning about some of this stuff for the first time, but I do want to learn more. So if you know anything about the Ismaili community and you are concerned about our freedoms being taken away with Bill C-63 and you have information, then please email me at info@savefreespeech.ca. Thank you.
There you go. So Greg's fighting the good fight. He's making some excellent points and saying, I'm just learning here. Do you know anything about this whole situation? I wonder if we investigated why they were kicked out of Africa, if that might yield some interesting talking points. Gad Sad says, last night my wife and I went for a walk after dinner. As we approached a park, I counted that nearly 50% of the women in the park were veiled. Do people have a right to be concerned about the rapid Islamification of their societies, or is this bigoted? Is it okay for millions of non-Muslims to say that they did not sign up to live in an Islamic society when they immigrated to the West, or is this bigoted? Suicidal empathy kills. Suicidal empathy eradicates the natural instinct to protect one's culture, heritage, religion, family, etc. When you are suicidally empathetic, nothing is as important as being a non-bigot. So Elon Musk says, in Montreal? Yes. Gadsad replies yes. So that's very interesting, right? Very, very interesting indeed. The invasion continues. And yeah, walking around parks in Guelph, there are a lot, 50%, 60% of people wearing head coverings and things like that. And it's not wintertime. These aren't toques. So very, very. Hello everyone, thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful